Hey there, welcome back. Today I want to talk about the kind of organization that you truly want to work for in sports media. This is very important if you're building your career, and if you're a sports fan as well. This, I think, might be surprising for you. Before I get into it, make sure to like this video and certainly subscribe so you'll get all of our videos as we release them and as we talk about sports media, sports journalism, and the sports industry. My name is Rick, and again, this video is talking about the kind of organization you want to work for. And I'm going to start with a story because stories are the best. The first professional baseball organization I worked with, it was wonderful. I started as an 18-year-old. I was just looking for experience. I would have paid to broadcast professional baseball, and it was wonderful. I was doing post-game interviews, and then one thing led to another. And then I was broadcasting the games, traveling with the team. I was 18 years old. Many of the players were my same age, so we had a lot in common. I made a lot of friendships, not only with players, which some of them I still have today, but with other people around baseball and around broadcasting. So I got a lot of great experience. But it wasn't until later on that I learned this very important lesson. And if you're just a sports fan and you're not interested in sports media, this is really going to give you some insight when you tune into a game on TV or when you listen to it on the radio or on the internet, wherever you watch sports. But for those first 6 years, I worked for the same organization, broadcasting professional baseball. And then I left and I moved on to another organization. Working for that second organization, one of the first games I did, it was April. It was it was actually a AA minor league baseball team. So you started in April, you ended at the end of August. That was the season. And I remember during that first homestand in April, beginning of April, it was cold. It was like 35 degrees. There were hardly any fans in the stands. They were bundled up. This was in the Northeast. So there was always a chance of snow. The players were all bundled up with the hats, the parkas. It was really an uncomfortable, brutal night at the park. And I remember at one point during the broadcast, as I'm painting the word picture and describing it, I remember talking about how the fans were bundled up over here. They're drinking hot coffee or hot chocolate. I can see the steam coming from their hot drink. They're bundled up in a blanket together to stay warm and combine their body heat. And I described how the players were blowing on their hands and how they were all bundled up with those masks and parka hats. And in the dugout, you could see they had a heater blowing in the dugout. And I was just describing it on the radio. I was painting that word picture so my listeners could understand and feel as if they were there. And so we go to commercial, and the general manager of the team, he's right here over my shoulder, and he taps me on the shoulder and he says, "Rick, can I talk to you?" I say, "Yeah, sure." Take off my headset, and he says, "Let's please not talk about the weather anymore." And I hadn't really dwelled on it, but to me, it was a big factor in what I was seeing and describing. And I said, "Oh, why not?" And he said, "I don't want fans to hear you talking about the weather and not want to come out to the ballpark. That's going to kill our ticket sales." I can understand his point. Certainly he was in the business of getting fannies in the seats, getting people to come out to the park. But I said, my job is to describe what I'm seeing so my listener can picture it. I want them to picture the action, the game. I want them to feel as if they're at the game. And so then weather is always a part of what I describe, whether it's 95 degrees in the summer, whether it's raining, snowing, cold, foggy, whatever it is. I want the listener to feel as if they're there. That's the Marty Glickman school. I'm painting that word picture, bringing them into the action, whether it's on radio, which is where I'm talking about now. TV is a lot more simple because they can see it as well. So he didn't agree, and I had my philosophy, and so we agreed to disagree. But here's the point I'm making. During those first 6 seasons, working for that first team when I was 18 until I was 24, I guess, if I do the math, not one time did that organization ever tell me what to say on the air or what not to say. 6 years. So hundreds of games, hundreds of broadcasts, and I was only 18 when I started. They never told me what to say regarding weather, regarding the team playing terribly on the field, which sometimes they did, regarding anything I saw, anything I described. They never once had influence on what I was going to talk about on the air. It was all up to me as a journalist, as a professional broadcaster. And so that's when it really clicked. In fact, I then went to broadcast for Army, broadcasting basketball and hockey. And in all my time working at West Point, never was told what to broadcast, what to say, what not to say. And you might think, as a military academy, they would have strict confining rules. I'm telling you my personal experience as a broadcaster. They never once leaned on me and pressured me to talk about the team in a glowing manner, because some organizations do that. They want their broadcaster to be a cheerleader. Now, obviously, I certainly cheered and wanted the Army teams to win because I knew the players and I had tremendous respect for them and what they were doing at the military academy. And there was a sense of pride that went with that. So I definitely wanted them to win.
If you're enjoying the show, check out our 7-hour online sports broadcasting course. We cover play-by-play, talk show hosting, television, and much more. Visit sportscastersclub.com and click on Online Sportscasting Class.
Same thing with the teams I was broadcasting, baseball or football or hockey. When you're with a team, it's natural to want them to do well. It's more fun, it's more exciting. But the first 6 years, that organization, they never told me what to say. As well as most of my career, that was the case. And so the point I'm making to you today is that if you can find an organization or an outlet or a station or a media corporation or whatever you're working for, if you can find one that lets you be you journalistically, that lets you be the broadcaster and lets you make the decisions editorially, what you're going to talk about, how you're going to describe, how you're going to be a professional. If you find someone that lets you do that, or some people that let you do that, or an outfit that lets you do that, that's like gold, because that's not the case everywhere. In fact, I encountered a lot of broadcasters when I would travel the country broadcasting college basketball or football, or whether it was in my years in professional baseball, traveling around. Most of the time, the broadcasters were constrained. They were stifled. They were directed. They were told what to say, how to say it. Now, I'm not saying you go off flying off the hip and you're just spouting nonsense and using crude language and having no discretion. That's not it at all. But in terms of how you're describing and bringing your listener and viewer into the action, if you can find someone that supports you as a journalist, trusts you as a broadcaster, and trusts you to have your viewer or your listener in mind and puts that as your first priority, if they value that, then you have found an employer you want to work for. So that's really the point of this video, to tell you that, I made at sportscastersclub.com, I made a blog post probably a decade ago on a 4th of July. And the title was, "Are Sportscasters Really Independent?" And I talked about this issue about how many media members are not independent because they're told what to say and how to say it and when to say it. And if you find yourself in a spot where that's the case, number one, you got to know that that's the majority of places. But also you have to understand that there are alternatives to that. And you have to, just based on yourself, can I thrive in that kind of environment? Or do I need to go somewhere that's going to let me be the broadcaster that philosophically I feel I have to be. And I know what I was comfortable with. I was comfortable painting the word picture in the Marty Glickman philosophy. And I would have always welcomed feedback so I can be better, or interesting things. In fact, there were always interesting things that I would come across or people would share with me that I did give to my listeners. But when you're not told and forced, it's one thing. When you're forced and told what to say, how to say it, that's another. So you need to determine what's best for you. And the number one thing, if you can work for an employer that lets you broadcast the way you want to broadcast, then that's like gold. And so you've got to understand that and value that. So if you have an employer like that already, congratulations. Tell them how much you appreciate it. Tell them that you understand that's not the case everywhere, and that you understand and that you value them because of that. And I think that'll go a long way. So if you have questions, leave a comment. If you think I'm wrong, or if you've encountered something different, please let me know in the comments. And again, subscribe to the video, like this video. That way you'll be shared more of our content. And again, my name is Rick. Thank you for joining us today, and I'll see you next time.